Another example, also a few years ago, they were interviewing on Palestinian television Ibrahim Sarsour. Ibrahim Sarsour today is an Israeli Arab member of parliament. At the time, he was the head of the Islamic movement, and he was interviewed regularly on Palestinian television condemning Israel, senior Islamic figure in Israel. And in one of the programs, they had callers call in and ask him questions. So listen to this question. Somebody called from a Gaza refugee camp and said as follows: I address you as a Muslim. My father and grandfather told me that during the catastrophe of the creation of Israel, our district officer issued an order that whoever stays in Palestine and in Majdal, which is near Ashkelon, is a traitor. He's a traitor. Meaning, we were told to leave by our Muslim leadership. So Ibrahim Sarsour, who is a leading Muslim Palestinian, says the one who gave the order forbidding them to stay there bears guilt in this life and in the afterlife throughout history until resurrection. So he's condemning the leadership for telling the Arabs to leave, but he's acknowledging that this is part of history. He's acknowledging that, yes, I recognize that you left because the leadership told you so. Again, acknowledgement of Israel's story. Now, here's an article just about a year ago from a Palestinian journalist who lives in Jordan, and he writes as follows. During the catastrophe, meaning the Palestinian catastrophe, the following happened. The first war between Arabs and Israel had started, and the Arab Salvation Army, which was 7 countries that surrounded Israel, were the Arab Salvation Army, came and told the Palestinians, we have come to you in order to liquidate the Zionists and their state. Leave your houses and villages. You will return to them in a few days safely. Leave them so we can fulfill our mission in the best way and so you won't be hurt. It became clear already then, when it was too late, that the support of the Arab states against Israel was a big illusion. So again, another source, just 2 years ago, saying exactly what Israel's been saying since 1948, that the Arab leaders, the Arab armies, are responsible for the refugee problem. I'll give you another example, and I'm showing you a few of these because of the importance of the refugee issue, to show that this message keeps coming. This is again from Al-Hayat Al-Jadida, the paper owned by the Palestinian Authority, written by another Palestinian journalist. The leaders and the elites promised us at the beginning of the catastrophe that the duration of the exile would not be long. It would last not more than a few days or months, and afterwards the refugees would return to their homes. Most of them did not leave until they put their trust in those Akuvian promises. There's a person in Islamic tradition named Akuv who lies. So they trusted in those false promises by the leaders. Afterwards, days passed, months, years, and decades, and the promises were lost. Again, a Palestinian journalist admitting to that. And here's another example of a Palestinian journalist. All of them are agreeing. Israel did not expel the bulk of the Palestinians. The bulk of them left because their leadership told them to, and all these people are critical of the Arab leadership today. You've made promises in the past, you make promises today, you're not keeping your word to the Palestinians. The important thing for us is the entire mountain of Palestinian ideology collapses. The whole victimhood message collapses. The whole point of their narrative and Israel's blame supposedly disappears, and these are all current Arab sources. Now, I want to show you other voices that we're hearing now in Palestinian refugee camps, and this is a fascinating source. This is an Arab in a Palestinian refugee camp near Bethlehem, and interviewed on Israeli television. Look what she said.
أنا بفضل لا سلطة ولا الوكالة تسيطر، يرجعوا اليهود من الأول عنا وأحسن وبنعيش. أنا بفضل هيك، لأن على زمان اليهود ما كانوا عايشين، إحنا مش عايشين مدفونين إحنا بالحياة.
Now this is so significant, and I'm hoping that this kind of sentiment will be heard more. We want the Jews to return. We don't like the UNRWA, we don't like the UN, we don't like the Palestinian Authority. We are suffering. The biggest problem today in Palestinian society is all the suffering that their own leadership brought on them. So we're hearing voices now of Palestinians who are saying, we want to go back to the days when Israel ruled the West Bank and Gaza, because in those days the conditions were much better. In those days we were taken care of. And I want to show you how this is, why they were saying that. There is this terrible myth terrible myth that the suffering of the Palestinians, the infrastructures that are destroyed are Israel's responsibility. I want to just show you what happened in the West Bank and Gaza under Israel. In 1967, in the West Bank and Gaza, less than or 15% of the people had electricity. 10% had running water, and about 3% had gas ranges. There was no modern infrastructure. And under Israel, 100% had electricity, over 80% running water, and 90% running water, 90% gas ranges. Israel revolutionized the whole infrastructures for Palestinians from 1967 to by the time it was given over to the Palestinian Authority. And it wasn't only the infrastructures. Israel created the Palestinian economy. In 1968, the gross national product of Palestinians was $165. When Israel was giving it over to the Palestinians, it was up to $1,800 per person per year. Now look at this. In 1965, they were much lower than Egypt, Jordan, and Tunisia. When Israel gave it over, they had a better economy than all of these countries. More income per capita than all of these countries. In the 1970s, the West Bank had the 4th fastest growing economy in the world. This is what Israel was doing for them. And that's what that woman was talking about. I'll give you another example. Healthcare. When Israel got the West Bank and Gaza, infant mortality was about 60 per thousand. Now look, under Israel, it went down to about 10 per thousand. And again, this is better than Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq. So in healthcare, we brought them from the worst in the Arab world to now be the best in the Arab world as well. And life expectancy as well. In 1967, the life expectancy for Arabs of West Bank and Gaza was 48 years. And under Israel, it rose to 72 years. And this is better than the average of the other Arab countries in the Middle East. So what we're seeing is all of these infrastructures. Israel, everything good for the Palestinians, Israel did. So this is the second myth, and it wasn't specifically our topic, but it's so important. The myth of the creation of Israel, that we caused the refugee problem, is being debunked by Palestinians themselves. And the myth that in 1967 to 1993, when Israel ruled the West Bank, administered the West Bank and Gaza, that Palestinians suffered under Israel, that is also totally false. And Palestinians are beginning to say it as well, as you heard that woman say, because everything good the Palestinians have was actually built by Israel. Now, one of the most important things to know is that the Palestinians themselves recognized how good Israel had been to them. And why do I say this? I want to show you some polls that were taken from 1996 till 2000. Now, 1996 is right after the Palestinian Authority was established. Israel, again, administered the West Bank and Gaza from 67 to 94. So this poll was taken after 27 years of Israeli rule. Palestinians were asked to give ratings to 4 places in the world in democracy and human rights. Now, Palestinian Authority, 50% of Palestinians gave the Palestinian Authority positive rating. France, 61% gave it a positive rating. United States, 68%. Israel, the best in the world. 78% of Palestinians gave Israel a positive rating in democracy and human rights, and this is after 27 years of Israeli administration. The next year, they did the same poll, still 77% thinking Israel is positive. The next year was still 75%, and these polls are Palestinian polls, not Israeli polls, Palestinian polls. And the last year these polls were taken was 99. Israel had dropped to 67% positive, but look, the PA had dropped to 32%. Only 32% of Palestinians thought that their own leadership was positive in democracy and rights. What we're saying here is this is a totally different and new way of seeing the history of Israel's administration of the West Bank and Gaza. These were the good years for the Palestinians. It's when their whole economic infrastructure was built, when their whole healthcare was built, when their whole structure was built. Anything good in an educational structure as well. Anything good in the Palestinian Authority was built by Israel and has been subsequently destroyed by the Palestinian Authority, who then blames Israel for the destruction. And then I've heard questions from journalists. They say, I show them all the hate material on Palestinian TV, and they say, but Palestinians hate Israel because they suffered under Israel. I say, no. They're suffering, but not under Israel. They're suffering under their own leadership. Israel is the one that they admired. So we have to create a whole different way of seeing the whole history, both of the creation and of Israel's treatment of Palestinians, which was according to Palestinians, based on democracy and human rights.